Welcome everyone to the first talk of the Design Talk organized by the Center for Architecture and Design and the AI Columbus Committee on Design. Before we start, I would like to thank our sponsors' generous support to make this program possible. And they include the Crest Gastropub, Columbus Underground, Jonathan Barnes, Architecture and Design, David Maleka's Architect, Moody Nolan, NBBJ, Schooley Caldwell Associates, and WSA Studios. Thank you, Tim and Brent. I also want to thank the team that put this program together in a relatively short amount of time. Some of them are here. I think most of them are here. Actually, Vince was here earlier, but he has to go. It's Vince Rosato, Daniel Mather, Daniel DeGreave, and Jeff Squire. Design Talk is a monthly talk being held here at the center every first Thursday at noon of the month, and it's an hour-long discussion on Columbus architecture, design, and the image, led by Central Ohio's leading architects, designers, and experts in specialized disciplines. They bring their experienced thoughts and share their vision on issues of different built environments that affect our daily life in the city and the area around it. And if you pick up a postcard, you should pick up a postcard when you sign in. Then when you see a wide range of topics from the future of library design to billboards impacts on our cities and urban environment, to bike lanes planning, the image and branding of our cities and others. And besides the postcard, you can also go to the center's website at columbuscfad.org/design-talks to download the poster for the program. Also, you can print it out yourself and put it on in your office. And if you're an AI member or architects, the design talk, most of our design talks also provide with a continuing education unit. So make sure you sign in if you're an architect or you need the credit at the front desk over there. So we'll also have an edited version of this talk and every other talk after this available online in about a week after the talk. So feel free to check it out and tell your colleagues about it if they can't make it today. So this is Design Talk. So today we're very fortunate and honored to have three of the leading experts in education design here with us, Tim Hawk, Carol Olszewski, and Brent Wilcox here. So I'm going to read a little bit of introduction and kind of bio of them. Tim is the president of the Columbus-based WSA Studio and holds expertise in the design of resilient interior environments for commercial and institutional clients. He has prepared space programs, design, and documents for clients in the corporate, educational, and religious sectors, and is a strong collaborator noted for value orientation, strong communication skills, and context-driven design. Tim holds a Master of Architecture and a Bachelor of Science in Architecture from Ohio State University, and has completed postgraduate study at the University of Illinois in Chicago in the history of architecture and arts. He's a registered architect in 7 states with NCARB certification. He joined WSA Studio in 1993, became the principal in 98, and assumed the firm's leadership position in 2004. He's charged with design and firm strategy, administrative leadership, and business development at WSA. He mentors staff and harnesses continuing education as practice evolution tool. He also taught architecture at collegiate levels and present nationally on topics of interest to architects and industry leaders throughout his career. And recently, Tim led the design of Wedgwood Middle School and Afrocentric pre-K to 12 early college for Columbus City School that he's going to talk about. And each of these projects integrated the Ohio School Design Manual and feature 21st Century Learning Initiative. And we're going to talk about that. So that's Tim. Welcome, Tim. Carol. Carol is the winner of this year's National AIA Thomas Jefferson Award for Public Architecture. It's a big deal. Congratulations. She's a graduate from Kent State University. She received her license in 1973 and began her career as a project architect working in Akron, Ohio. In '85, Carol was appointed State Architect of Ohio And in this position, which she held for 3 years, she oversaw approximately $1.5 billion in design and construction projects. And one of those projects that we're all familiar with is the Webster Center for the Arts by Peter Eisenman and the Columbus-based Trott and Bain Architects, which was completed in 1990s. In '88, Carol was promoted to Deputy Director of Ohio Division of Public Works, a position that she held until '91. And during this period, she initiated a master plan study for a renovation of the Ohio State House, just across from us, which is a National Historic Landmark that has been subject to neglect and misguided renovation. She spent most of the '90s working for a private firm, and in 2003, she joined the public sector, and this time working for the Columbus City Schools as a senior executive of capital improvement. I believe her title is senior executive director of the facility management, a position that she still occupies today. She had led a 15 years, $1.3 billion school reconstruction program, and as a testament to her leadership, 42 schools projects, including 12 historic renovations, were completed during the first decades of the program. And as work continues, she is challenging design teams to achieve LEED Gold certification by pursuing sustainable criteria that support teaching and learning as their first priority. She's also leading the redevelopment of Fort Hays, a 77-acre Civil War military base, into an art campus. And she has commissioned a master plan to ensure that the future development on the site is sensitive to its status as National Historic Landmark. So welcome, Carol. Brent is Associate Principal of Moody Nolan. And as a director of Moody Nolan's education studio, Brent has diversified experience in all phases of the projects, from programming to planning to concept development, project management, and design. Along with his strong client management skill, he's knowledgeable with all levels of educational facilities. That's why we invited him here today. And is currently researching and continually researching the latest industry trends. So his project would be competitive in the marketplace. He also works very closely with clients for entire duration of the project, beginning with the pre-contractual phase and ending with the construction administration. So welcome, Brent. So I guess the first question that I want to start with the talk today, I want to start with Carol. So, Columbus City School is one of the biggest school districts in Ohio, I would imagine, with 116 schools. And we've seen a lot of construction projects going on in the past 10 years. What are some of the design principles and guidelines that you guys use to facilitate that development, and what is the 21st century learning, and how does that apply to school design, Carol?
Actually, it's interesting because in thinking about responding to questions today, I went back and pulled out a few documents from the district's archives, and in 1996, the district actually put together long before I was there, a document on building environments for 21st century learning. And so I was curious to see whether it had any relevance, almost 20 years later. And and in fact, I wish I'd read it just about every year after I read it again. In 1996, Columbus City Schools' educational vision, was that learning during the 21st century will occur in a variety of settings, including schools, homes, and communities, with each supporting the other. While the home and school have been primarily responsible for teaching and learning, in the future, businesses and social agencies will become more involved with family support, lifelong learning, and workforce development. The educational trends predicted for the future include flexible use of school space to facilitate the learning process for students, as well as provide learning opportunities for teachers, parents, and members of the community, and the renovation and construction of facilities to support research-based instructional strategies and developing technologies that will change the look of classrooms and allow students to interact with teachers and mentors both inside and outside the classroom. I think that's a very strong, powerful statement that still is true today for where teaching and learning is going throughout the nation, and hopefully, especially in Columbus City Schools. And the master plan that went together in 2002 that I was hired to implement, this is one volume of probably close to 20 volumes that define the scope of work for that program. It pretty much takes off from this and puts more detail into that, specifically related to the facilities. So I think that would still be our vision. I'm seeing more and more involvement with the parents and the communities in learning, more and more opportunities where children can learn from home as well as at school, distance learning opportunities and technology changes in the classroom that pretty much dramatically change the way education is going to be delivered in the future. And the goal in any of these programs is to be flexible enough. The goal architecturally is to be flexible enough to support those academic changes and initiatives.
Okay. I know that you want to share some of the project that you sent to me, and we kind of talk about that. So I'm going to show you the slide, and you can kind of talk about that. Let me switch that out. So, so what we're looking at here, this is the Georgian Heights Elementary School.
And I don't think there's anybody here. This is a Meacham and Apel project. It is our first LEED Gold project. We have 3 now out of 10 that are being submitted, so I'm really excited about that. Some of the guidelines that we gave to the architects as part of the master plan were that the school should be able to be used as a community center, accommodate daily use, weekend use, and year-round use. Excuse me. The buildings need to be energy efficient and air conditioned to accommodate year-round use. At this point in time, I think the district still has close to 70 schools that are not air conditioned. Critically important in an urban environment is quality high indoor air quality standards. We have a significant portion of children with asthma and other health-related issues. From a functioning standpoint, things like separate gyms and cafeterias. ADA accessibility is critical to the schools. And then, like I said before, it's important that the buildings be big enough that we have some flexibility to use spaces in different ways. So on this plan, and I think there may be another version of this in there, you can see in the green the gym. The dining is off of that, so it provides an expanded space. Did you go on? Yeah, okay, all right. Academic wings in the blue that are separated from the public spaces, so when the building's being used for community use, the academic areas are locked down and not subject to intrusion issues, I guess you'd say, with the public using the building. There's dedicated art, music, and computer lab spaces that can also be used by the community. And then really important in this latest group of projects are extended learning areas, which you'll see outside of some of the classroom areas where children can learn in different ways. What the educators have taught me is each child learns in a different way, some in an individual setting, some in a small group setting, and some in a large group setting. And so we're trying to provide opportunities for different types of learning in the building.
Okay. The next one is Clinton Elementary.
Clinton. Yes, I may not live through today on this one, to tell you the truth. This is one of our historic buildings, where the district actually, out of our original stock of buildings, had 56 schools that were considered historically significant buildings. Clinton Elementary was one that was originally scheduled to be demolished, and in 2002, Columbus Landmarks worked with Columbus City Schools to prove that 10 of these buildings could be reused and meet 21st century academic standards. And I think that's been really critically important as we've worked on these schools, that there's a lot of wonderful old buildings in the city that maybe can't hit that mark, but the ones that we are renovating, and the vast majority of the 56, all those that are going to be used by the district will be renovated. There's no plans really to demolish any others. But what is important is that it does meet the same standards of space and educational opportunities the new building would. It's different solutions in those. The nice thing is some of the old buildings have wonderful extra spaces in them that provide those extended learning opportunities. The quality of the individual old classrooms with the real high tin ceilings and the natural wood floors. It's something we can't replicate today. Typically, those rooms are smaller than you'd want for a standard school classroom today, but we can work with that if we have the flexibility in other spaces. You need to be able, the safety, security, accessibility issues are all different on these buildings as well. The really important reason to maintain our historic buildings, other than from the school district standpoint, not from an architect's standpoint, is in most cases they are the center of their community. And in almost every community in Columbus, they are really excited about being able to maintain those buildings, struggled to understand what they could look like renovated. And if you've been in any of them, like East High School or even Clinton Elementary School, the communities are really excited about the end product on those. And I think we've met the 21st century standards in a different way than you would in new construction.
So since you talk about that, you said you may not get through the day with this project, and I know that what you meant, because I'm one of the parents whose two kids go to school, so I heard a lot about some of the problem. Obviously,
I can practice my speech for tonight right now. I guess, so.
But I mean, I guess I don't know if people are familiar with the issue with the annex building. There was a 110-year-old building, not this one that you see, but attached to it on the other side. And we hear opinion about on both sides whether it should be taken down or demo. But I guess my question is how does the district, or is it really the district's responsibility to deal with this kind of historic preservation of the building? When a school building that has a certain kind of perceived historic values in the community, how do we deal with that when it's no longer in use? Which I assume that's not the case here, is that the school has no plan to use that particular building. But at the same time, people feel obviously a sense of loss when something like that has been there for 100 years to be demolished. So how do you feel about that issue?
Well, I will tell you, it's going to be one of the toughest days of my career, because I think most of you, or a lot of you, know that I've been a pretty strong advocate for our historic school buildings. In this case, just in front of where the children are playing here is a small 1904 building that was a township school back in the early 1900s when they built, and this is who I'm going to be angry with. Why didn't they take it down when they built the new one back in 1924? I wouldn't have this deal today. But when the bigger building was built, it was left on the site. The architects for this project were Schooley Caldwell Associates. Is there anybody from Schooley here? I don't think so. And we worked really hard to see if there was a solution that would allow us to maintain the 1904 building. And I guess I really ought to go back a little earlier. In 2002, when the master plan went together, and the Columbus Landmarks made a case for saving another series of historic buildings. This was one of those. And the end result of the study in 2002 was that the 1924 building could certainly be saved and renovated and provide 21st century learning space. The 1904 building could not. And so in 2002, the decision was made that the small building would have to be removed from the site, demolished, or repurposed for a non-academic use. And some of the reasons for that, it's a wood frame building with a masonry veneer for the most part. I think actually the exterior walls are masonry load bearing, but the structure inside is all wood. The other building is more fireproof construction. They're separated by 130, I'm not going to remember the number. There's a good bit of separation between the two buildings. There was not an easy way to look at adding an addition that would connect the buildings. You're going to have major fire separation issues between the types of construction. But more importantly, the little building, which is a cute little building. I'm not sure it has a lot of strong architectural merit, but it's a nice little building. It has it's 3 stories. It's about 6,000 or 7,000 square feet. 2 classrooms per floor on 3 stories. 1 stairwell. And the second means of egress from the building is a fire escape. There literally is no way without an addition to get a second means of egress from that building. And even if you did that, you'd almost have to put 2 at the ends of the building because it's a center staircase right now. When the newer building was built in 1924, all the utilities were removed from the little building, and a pipe was run to connect the boiler to the little building. The building, as it stands today, has no utilities. And so it has a lot of negative aspects for it being used as educational space. Well over $1 million to bring it up to academic standards if you were going to leave it as a standalone building. In order to connect it to the other building, the size of the addition would basically take up any leftover green space on the site. And so while it will hurt me tonight to continue to make a case to demolish this little building, in my role as senior executive at Columbus City Schools, for the children on that site, this building should not be there. We've provided Columbus Landmarks and others 6 years of time and assistance to help identify another use for the building, and no solid proposal has come forward. Right now it is a safety issue on the site with a vacant building in the middle of the playground. It separates the hard surface playground from the little bit of green space that we do have, so when teachers are out supervising kids on recess, they can't see the kids, and I will tell you the #1 concern of parents in Columbus City Schools is the safety of their children, more so than the quality of the space or the teaching or anything at a building. And not being able to see children or have to put extra people outside to monitor during recess all contribute to a situation that I just can't justify this building remaining there. We tried really hard to find another location to see if it could even be moved. And that didn't materialize either. So it's been interesting having the dual hat there, one being a lover of old buildings and the other 3 hats as an architect and then as a representative of the school district, and trying to come up with a solution. This is a very small site. It's about 2 acres. A typical elementary school site should be at least 5. So we're already stressing the site with a building for 400 students and only 2 acres. So, the decision was made in 2002, and we provided opportunities to go a different direction, but no solid programs or plans have come forward.
Well,
so that's
I'm
where
sure
we are
it's
today.
a difficult situation for a lot of people.
It's very difficult.
In this stage. So let's move on to the next one. This is
Okay.
Lyndon McKinley and East High School.
Yes, these are both Brent's projects, actually. He's specializing in our high schools, and I think the reason I wanted to show these is it gets to some different types of spaces. Lyndon McKinley is a STEM school, and so, and yet it's in a historic building, and so trying to come up with unique spaces for teaching and learning, utilizing the historic building, and in this case with an addition, was kind of fun. And I think it's been pretty successful. This is our one and only green roof, and it is in the addition, the gymnasium addition to the historic building, and it is immediately off of the science labs, which are pretty similar to the ones in the East High School building, although I'm sure he's assured me he didn't use the same drawings. But well, and so this speaks to the 21st century qualities that a building must meet changing programmatic needs, including science, performing and visual arts, physical education, which is a critical part of the learning experience. And then for Columbus City Schools, we also have a high need on spaces for counselors, tutors, and parents, which get into some of your alternative learning spaces. So we have provided 21st century science rooms in all of our high schools and middle schools now, even if they haven't been renovated, even if the whole building hasn't been renovated. But trying to meet those needs does change the focus of the project.
Okay, and then we're on to the Trevitt Beatty Park.
Yeah, this is Trevitt and Beatty Park and Huey A.G. Bell, I think, are on there.
Yep.
And Columbus Scioto. the school that none of us can remember the name on because we've changed it so many times. Columbus is as an urban district has an extremely high percentage of special education needs for our children. 16% of the 50,000 kids in the district are special ed kids, including medically fragile children. I know when I was in school, I don't know that I ever remember seeing a child in a wheelchair unless they had broken their leg, something like that. We have one high school that I think has close to 15 to 20 children in wheelchairs in the building. We have a large population of hearing and visually impaired children, in addition to the full gamut of special needs from high incidence, which is the more typically slower developing issues, to very low incidence, which are extreme special ed concerns. And as a result, while the vast majority of those children are mainstreamed into our typical schools, because of the extreme need of some of those children, we have 3 very specialized schools. Trevitt Beatty is actually 2 schools in one building. Beatty Park is an elementary building for children with severe emotional disabilities, which means you have 6 to 8 children in a classroom instead of 25, and a lot of social service agencies to support those. We intentionally built this building attached to a typically developing elementary school with the hope that some of those children could move into a more typically developing school at some point in their lives. Frankly, there's not a lot of chance of that happening with the level of emotional problems these children have. The successor to that is Columbus Scioto 612, which is the middle and high school building for children with severe emotional disabilities. These children quite often are very, very bright, but they cannot function in a typical setting, and the behavioral issues in some cases are frankly very dangerous. So they have to be in a school on their own. They're way too disruptive to be to go into an inclusion classroom in a regular school. So we've just completed Columbus Scioto this year. It's for a building as big as a elementary, or as a building for about 500 kids, and the population's 250 in this. And give me an idea of the level of the, oh, it went on. Give me an idea of the level of disabilities. We are replacing things like heavy-duty doors already in this building. Trying to come up with materials that won't be destroyed by the children in this building is a really interesting challenge. The last one is Huey A.G. Bell. A.G. Bell is a pre-K building attached to a regular elementary school, and the children in this building are deaf, and we spent a considerable amount of money with sound reinforcement systems and all of the extra needs for children with pretty severe hearing issues.
So that's why you have the sign language on
sign
the
language,
door.
yes. The sign language is on all the signs in the building, and the classrooms are specially designed to meet their needs.
Cool. And then the last one is Old Orchard and the Liberty Elementary School here.
I wanted to give you, and these are, Liberty is also one of our LEED Gold buildings. See, a third building that just received its gold certification. This speaks to some of the extended learning areas that we're able to include, and I wanted to bring up a point with this, the outside classroom space, which is just delightful, and as soon as it was completed, the art teacher had her kids out there working on a regular basis. From a school district standpoint, winter comes along and the awnings have to come down and all that type of thing. Our project manager discovered that the custodian had put the awnings all away, expecting that he would never, ever get them out again. And so while we, as architects, all have wonderful ideas on these spaces, there's a whole nother side to this. Can the school maintain those spaces? Do they understand the importance of these spaces and how to take care of them? I'm now in charge of the people that take that stuff down, so it will go back up as long as I'm there. But I think there's as architects, we tend to think we know best about how architecture is to go together, and you really need to listen to your school clients to understand their challenges and what they're trying to do, and respond to their needs rather than bringing preconceived ideas to the table on this. Not that these are preconceived, this is what we wanted here. Our failure is we haven't a comparable process in the district to help teachers understand how to effectively use these new teaching spaces that they have. Teachers historically have not been taught to think outside the box, and education is going towards more collaborative processes and different learning spaces, and that half of the user group for the schools needs to grow as we grow in our design concepts as well.
Thank you, Carol. So I want to go to Tim. I will come back to you, Carol, but because we talk about the collaborative, learning, and Tim, you mentioned about design to promote active learning. What do you mean by that?
Can I talk more broadly first? Because
absolutely.
Carol kind of inspired me to dovetail into what she was talking about, and I have to suggest to you that, or tell you that when you introduced us and you introduced me as an expert in educational, I cringed. And the reason is that actually I believe the reason we're able to work with Carol is because our firm is never really, well, clearly we are not an educational expertise firm, and we've never sought that out. But what we do seek out is expertise and collaboration. And to dovetail on what Carol was just saying about you as architects, we have to listen to, or we should listen to clients in terms of the facility support or user groups. One of the things my mentors, Bob Wandel and Tom Schnell, taught me was actually to also try to get over yourself and listen to the client. And through that process, you become an expert in collaborating with them, and the design should improve, because it's not just your group's vision, but it's a broader vision that's informed by Carol's national leadership in these initiatives, or the entity that put this together, DGAIA, the planning group, whoever else touched these documents. And for educational design, the Ohio School Facilities Commission has done a remarkable job of pulling together a school design manual, which on its surface appears as a very prescriptive document. But what's not in there is the human issues related to execution of those components. So that's what I feel is so compelling about entering into this type of design, is that we're able to bring varied experiences from our diverse experience elsewhere into this arena and learn, and also hopefully bring ideas to the district or our clients that would be new to them. Because I believe historically, maybe in 1998 when this document was being prepared, there was a thought that it was more about execution of ideas that had been proven. And the more we have diversity in the student body or in the type of projects that we work on in terms of historic or existing context, the more we recognize that there needs to be a more diverse response. So that dovetails into your question, which I think was, I completely ignored it, but I think your question was all about, what was it, extended learning?
The active learning that you said.
Active learning,
the design
yes.
to promote active learning.
Yes, so it dovetails into this. So, my first project at Wandel and Schnell in 1993 was to design a new world headquarters for CompuServe. So for those of you in the audience, that was an online services company. There were these companies that provided technology support, and they predated America Online, which is also now defunct. But anyway, they provided, this was an innovative company, and my first project was around all of these people who were thinking out of the box. And they were thinking well beyond computing. So in 1993, in an architecture firm, you had one guy in my firm sitting at a computer with we didn't even have a megabyte of memory, and you were sharing each other's computers and saving to the other guy's hard drive, okay? And we were trying to develop drawings for an innovative technology company. And so these individuals were thinking broadly about the way problems would be solved. The reason I bring that up is I feel like that kind of predates all of my work in educational design, but gave me a perspective that's a little bit more about, that informs active learning. So my experience in the corporate sector, or my experience in higher education, informs what I might bring or suggest in terms of active learning environments. A lot of times when we meet with these individuals within the school districts, they understand their technologies. They've never seen the technologies that are being implemented in the corporate sector, who are early adopters. So we're able to foresee that those technologies may change the educational environment in order to promote and allow this type of extended learning to occur. And we see extended community-based interest generationally. So when I was in middle school, or I think it was elementary school, Marnat and Crofus, which is now MKC, did this really cool building for us. 1974, it was an open concept plan. You had no walls, and you had 6 groups of students that were in this, and I loved it, right? It was very kind of hippie culture cool. And I went back and visited it, and my niece was there, and they had built walls to divide the school. So it was a failed experiment. I guess it's like Windows 8, it's not going so well. The reason I bring that up is that what was good about that building was that the size and the proportion for the way it came together was all clustered around the common spaces. And there's flexibility related to these common spaces. And now the building is adaptable, and it's been able to support a more active learning environment. So it was very futuristic in relationship to this idea of active learning, but it failed on some of the human issues related to privacy and stuff. So when we were asked to participate and lead the Wedgwood project, which is on the west side of Columbus, we were taking a middle school that was really, in my opinion, not such a bad building. It just had all kinds of accessibility issues, and envisioning how we could create, I guess I would say, synergistic learning within the grade groups. And what we came up with was a really long building, but the reason it's long is so that we can create strong learning environments by grade level. So in the middle school, and so I don't know this stuff, she does, right? And she gets this knowledge from someone else. So if we go into the programming meetings and we listen to her and other leaders, we're able to take that criteria and translate it into a design response. And what I feel like we bring to the table is not expertise on pod-based learning or grade level enrichment, et cetera, because actually the teachers know that and the educators know that. What we bring to the table is the ability to charrette the problem and hopefully resolve it. And I also think that the most important thing that we try to bring to the project is a viewpoint that's more futuristic or global in its perspective, so that the building can be resilient and absorb change in educational curriculum models over time. So the building on its outside, my wife says it's really ugly. I think it's very fine. But it's raw, it's pretty raw. And we felt that...
what's the material? It's like concrete?
It is a concrete, there's a new material out, it's called concrete block. just
a
like
high-tech material.
and it's very inexpensive, and actually applied well can look okay. And then we coupled it with, I think it's an, it's a design block product that's manufactured or distributed through Oberfields, and it's a stained concrete block veneer. So these buildings are built like tanks, you know. They have to withstand a lot of and take a lot of abuse. And traditionally, they've been decorated quite well. So the budgets now need to go into flexible space, more active learning space, environments that are going to be driven by technology. And I don't think we have the budgets to decorate them as much as we did before. So if we can be restrained in terms of the way we apply materials, hopefully it will work. So that's Wedgwood, and that was our first big project. And then we're working a part of a very collaborative team with about 350 architects to do the, I was a little flip, it was 320. We're working with HKI Associates, Authora A. Spencer locally, and then we've had design consultation nationally for 21st century learning concepts from Perkins and Will Chicago, and an OSU Buckeye alum is participating in that. This is a very large site on the east side where we're taking a program that's very culturally rich, and driven by the idea of, I'll put it in my terms, sort of like we're all part of a family, and the way we gain access to knowledge is through shared responsibility or mutual respect for one another. Here what we're doing is we're creating educational villages, sort of derived from the idea of African culture, where you have a village leaders would be the teachers. And at the school, they actually call the teachers Baba and Mama, which are terms of respect. And
Mama Olszewski.
Yes, she's Mama Olszewski. I have not earned Baba yet, but this project has, here we're going to use brick. We're not using concrete block.
I know, it's fancy.
So we're making it a little bit more fancy. This is going to be, we were hoping to seek LEED Platinum. We're having a challenge getting to that level. We may still be able to pull off platinum, but at this point we're for sure going to be able to be gold unless something apocalyptic
Now, what are the
happens.
things that you do that is important to get that LEED certification to that level?
There's a lot of emphasis on energy savings and efficiency. There's a lot of emphasis on natural light, access to views, and daylighting. And air quality is very important as well. So it has an impact on the planning module so that you are never too far from natural light and view. The additional thing on the site is there's a lot of, well, every site really has a lot of water goals in terms of quality water management. And then the thing that's really important is just sort of a drop kick, or a drop, it's an easy one for us, is it's an urban site. So the idea of urban renewal or urban improvement is so important to LEED. And it seems like a natural to us, but most schools are now, in my hometown, they're considering taking my wonderful high school and putting one out on the edge of town. I want to go strangle them, you know, like we're going to take all the kids and drive, or have you ever been to Athens? Athens, Ohio, where Ohio University is?
Yeah.
One of the most walkable campuses on earth. Their high school is in the plains. Every kid gets on a bus and goes to another town. Isn't that crazy? So anyway, I've digressed. Yes.
Okay. And these are the interior view of the
Yeah, this is a
so
concept.
colorful.
It's an old drawing. Yeah, you've seen it. The idea here is,
This is a beautiful space here.
yeah, this is a upper level village view. So the idea is to have volume. One thing that's unique about this that actually we've seen in some of your projects as well, because we go and steal from them ideas. But the idea of flexible classroom that can modulate and expand into an extended learning space. So the other thing that's, I think, key to the success potentially of this project is we're distributing the library and the media into the communities that the students are in. So if this is a high school village, it will have resources in this mobile learning area, extended
So they
learning
roll
area.
out from the classroom
Absolutely.
when they need it.
Or you can open the doors up over here and you can actually extend your educational focus to the media center. That's exactly right there. And then, so that requires a huge change in migration, in my opinion, from the controlled librarian in the library. Remember, you couldn't talk and you had to have buzzers going out. So there have been discussions on this, and actually this is something I learned from Perkins and Will. So his comment was, so what if a kid steals a book? Is that bad? And Carol responded, I don't know, what'd you say, I forget. I just liked what he said. I didn't listen to you, Carol.
Such a wonderful, I mean, I don't want stuff stolen, but the fact that children would want to steal books is a problem we'd kind of like to have, so.
Yeah. I mean, if you got kids that are wanting to take books home to read, why are we keeping them from doing that? So,
Taking them home to resell them is a different thing.
for some other use recreationally, that's not good. But the idea is, if the school really becomes a part of your community, and you feel like something that's there is something you want to share in and be excited about it, let's do that. So instead of the books being on the shelf, secluded behind the librarian, bring them into the environment. And it's not, the book is symbolic because we know books are going the way of me. So we probably want to have it referenced as integrated media that supports them. So there you go.
Very good. So I'm, oh,
thing
sure.
to that? Because this is more than an architectural issue, and I'm a big advocate for making sure we do still have books in the school, even though we do use other media sources. But Columbus City Schools can't afford full-time librarians in every building. Children today are lucky if they go and meet with a librarian in a library once a week, once every 2 weeks, or even once a month. This brings the library resources directly to the kids, and their teachers can provide that support on teaching and learning using library spaces with somewhat of a traveling librarian coming through and assisting rather than, sitting in an isolated room that is not being used most of the day.
And can I have one more thing, and then I promise I'll be quiet. So I realized that we had the plan up here.
Yes.
So the idea is that you'd get the safety and security of being able to put all the, let's say this is the first and second graders. They're in here, they're safe and secure, they have access to an outdoor play area that's immediately adjacent, and they can go to the potty, they have their cubbies distributed, they can just have a ball in here all day.
Right.
And they can go and then the other thing, I see Joanna Rogers in the back. So she's the interior designer working on the project, and one of our big initiatives, which is so vital to the success of this, is not just mobile technology, but actually providing mobile furniture solutions to help support active learning. And I think this is my final plug because I'm a big advocate of interior architecture, but far too often we think we know everything, and we, as architects, actually don't have the passion or the budget or the drive to finish the project. And the reason is because we don't start with thinking about those issues, right? We're thinking about the form. We're thinking about natural light. We're thinking about everything that's not human. We're thinking abstractly. If we actually start by thinking about what the experience is for the student first, I think we have a better building. And so by engaging the interior designers, that's my ring. Someone has my ring. I love that ring. But if we engage the interior designers or those people who are helping us think specifically about those issues first, it creates a different concept.
Right. Thank you. So I want to go to Brent. I'm sorry that we're kind of running a little behind. Now, one of your titles is education programmer. So, I'm interested to hear if you would agree or disagree with Tim about that. He said, well, we're not expert in educational design. We are just expert in collaborating with the school. How would you say about that part?
Well, first of all, I'd like to coin, I can't coin the phrase. Moody Nolan has coined the phrase, Kurt Moody has coined the phrase responsive architecture, and it is a collaboration. We've always gone into projects as planners and architects knowing that this is not our building. This is a building, first off, for students, as Tim said, and we are working with the school to bring about the best possible outcome on a planning project. So, we've been fortunate to work with Carol on several projects right from the very beginning, Linden Elementary School, and it's allowed us to, these projects from Linden that started with simple tutor rooms that were just between two classrooms, has allowed us to evolve into different project types through 21st century. So tutor rooms to like East Columbus Elementary School had a commons, a cafetorium, so to speak, which extended into East High School, which was a pure renovation of the existing school, which helped us on Linden McKinley, which was essentially a traditional school, which we had to convert into a 21st century learning environment with flexible, movable walls. And so it's allowed us, being responsive to the needs of the students is actually where it's brought us to a 21st century design principles and understanding what it means to design 21st century schools.
I see. So now you are, obviously, you're specialized almost in education. What is the latest? Like we heard a lot about flexibilities to accommodate the changing technologies, and then Tim talked a lot about the human condition, about how to design it for the actual people who are actually going to be in the space. What are the things that is important for the future of school design in your standpoint?
Well, it's interesting. As a firm, we try to stay up on educational and trends in general in different building types. We each try to keep abreast of about 10 different trends in each project type. I happen to have that with me, but I'm not going to go through all of them. But I think some of the key ones are transparency, flexibility, obviously. You talked about movable wall systems, how students can engage space beyond the classroom, how they can engage educators, facilitators, and each other beyond the classroom. And that happens beyond the 900 square foot classroom environment. We talk about flexibility. Another key one is collaboration. Collaboration between not only the teachers themselves, the educators, collaboration with educators and the students, and even students and students. And so you have to, 21st century space is creating space that can be unique for each of those three types. So
I see. So let's quickly go to the two projects you want to share today.
I brought our two most recent projects, and like I said, the evolution through some of the Columbus schools has actually got us to this point.
For somebody else.
Many of the principals on Linden were in this, though.
So these two schools are not Columbus City schools?
These are not Columbus City schools, no. I actually brought Reynoldsburg City Schools. It's a Summit campus. It's their new high school on the east side of Reynoldsburg. The other one's New Albany, which I'll get to in a second. Reynoldsburg School is, it's a 68-acre farm site, and with a lead project starting on a farm site is not good. But we did achieve LEED Silver, but what we had to do is have organizing principles. In this case, we created what those vertical green lines are the bioswales, which helped organize the site. We have a geothermal field, about 400 wells in between two buildings. We also have a wetland in the northeast corner of the site with actually an eco lab, and our OSFC representative, Rhonda Hagemeyer, actually helped us discover that we could use a Mongolian yurt as an eco lab. And I think there's some pictures in the bottom left corner. There are two yurts joined with a common space, which are actually two 1,200 square foot elementary and a high school classroom.
Wow.
You can keep
pretty
going.
Cool.
So this is actually the entire site as it's finally ended up. It's a high school, a 912 and a K5 with a bus loop between. You can see the bioswales that run in the north-south direction, some sports facilities that line the outer edges, and then the wetland on the northeast corner. As we advance, the school itself is a two-story school. It is a STEM school. we talk about the double-loaded corridor. We've done a lot of double-loaded corridor buildings, but 21st century architecture seeming to, you want to use 100% of the space for education. And what you see is between the classrooms down the spine on the southern edge there is, we actually have 3 STEM academies, and they stack on the first and second level. So they replicate. You can see the plans on the right side, but you can see the common areas. There's actually flexible walls between the classrooms themselves, so they do team teach, and they actually have, there's garage doors essentially that allow movement to the common area between. There's also connection across that common area to classrooms across the way. So, not only do they migrate between rooms from a teaching standpoint, students use the common area, which has that green hatch in it, but they also have team teaching across that common areas. So every one of these pods has a science component. So you see science labs embedded in each one. And in the pictures, you can see the movable walls on the left, top left. There's a extended learning area, which is on the bottom right, which is for 3 science classrooms. And on the top right is a flexible performing arts center. It's the entire seating for 1,200 is flexible. It all retracts. So they actually have a 75 by 75 foot floor at the end of the day for whether it be STEM, robotics. They have a good flat surface to do those type of things within the building itself. Collection of water is obviously big. We do have a green roof that's very similar to what we did at Linden McKinley on that project, but the collection of water through, they're not cisterns, they're just collection basins. Exposure of mechanical systems in the bottom middle picture, so everything was color-coded, so students would know how the systems work. They could see the origin of the system and where they essentially flow. And then obviously the light shelves to bounce daylight further into the building on the bottom right.
And then the next one is in New Albany.
Yes, the next one is New Albany. New Albany is currently under construction. We're doing a 2 through 8 building, grades 2 through 8. It is the deep purple color building just north of the large green area.
It's a big campus.
This is a very large campus. It's a K through 12 campus. They were looking, they were overcrowded with their middle school components, so that's why we did a 2 through 8 building. The building to the left, that's a small addition, which is right there, is a gymnasium. So that's the building, and then all the playground is located in the center for about 1,200 students. So the K1 is located to the right. So we want to keep going.
Okay.
So just to take you quickly through that plan, I mean, it's quite unique. It has a central entry on the upper floor. You actually enter into a round entry space that is actually the food service. This is where all the kids, there's basically commons on each side, left and right of that central core. It goes from a public to what we call semi-public to semi-private to private areas. And what that is students can start in the more central public area. The general public is there. It has flex labs, which are 6 classrooms that can be modified in any configuration. But students can take, if they start in the center with, say, food, they can migrate. There is a small cafe, which I can show you a picture of in a second, but they can migrate from public to the very private side of the building. You can see that center entry area, which all the food service can be removed from that central area in the top left corner. It can become an art and more of a formalized meeting space, a cafe in the center. What we're finding in 21st century schools is there's always the square footage challenge, and to get flexible space and larger common areas and meeting spaces, certain areas are actually decreasing in size. One of those are food service. The traditional cafeteria is slowly disappearing in 21st century design. Classrooms themselves are starting to get a little bit smaller because some of the space that was in the classroom is now in what we would call a common area. So it's 300 students on each side, and they each share a common area. Elevations, it's a very traditional Georgian design. We worked with Stern Architects as part of this. Kevin Harrison with Harrison Planning Group was part of the planning group. And April Dominy, the superintendent, has spearheaded this from the sense that she is looking for 21st century education. And the practices that are used here we want to be on the cutting edge.
I want to thank you, Tim, Carol, and Brent. It's a pleasure to have you here today for the first of the Design Talk series. So Design Talk will be back next month on the first Thursday, which is May 1st. And we're going to talk about the library design in the digital age with Mike Serrano of AMBJ, Jonathan Barnes of Jonathan Barnes Architecture and Design, and Allison Circle of Columbus Metropolitan Library. So thanks for coming, and hopefully I'll see you back here next month. Thank you.